The shirt's dirty. But I don't care. He was the MVP of this episode. I gotta wear it.
Hey guys, welcome back to the MCU HQ, and this is my review of episode 5 of What If? Zombies. I got a lot to talk about for this episode, both non-spoiler and spoiler. Got some thoughts on everyone's friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. So as usual, I'll start off non-spoiler, then get into spoiler. So if you haven't seen it, I'll let you know when to click away, watch the episode, then come back. But anyway, let's get into as much as I can say about this episode without spoilers. Alright, so this was an absolutely incredible episode. I did not think anything would be able to top last week's episode with Doctor Strange. This might have done it. They're both really good episodes. I loved this episode so much. I'm so glad that the zombies episode turned out good. I was kind of worried there was a chance it wouldn't, but they knocked it out of the park with this episode. But man, is it dark. And I mean unbelievably dark. There is a lot of death, a lot of gruesome death. Don't get too attached, basically. And if there's any little kids, some of the zombies might be kind of scary. They toned it down from just how insane the comic book is, but they still, paid attention to the fact that it's a very dark and gross story, and they put elements of that in. So, yeah, and I'll get more into the specifics and spoilers, but just know it's pretty dark. And like I said, there is so much death. An unbelievably high amount of death. I don't get attached. Again, that's what I'm saying. Don't go into this episode getting attached to people, because you'll get depressed like I did. And this episode has a powerful message that I feel like the rest of the episodes didn't have. And it's kind of this message of finding the hope through the chaos, which I think it's a good message that they relay through Spider-Man, who's the main character of this episode. And Spider-Man in this episode is what mainline MCU Spider-Man should have been from the start. He gets to play with all these other characters in this awesome world. He gets to play with their toys. He has the cloak of levitation. We've all seen it. But the writers made sure to keep the fundamental aspects of Spidey intact as the heart of the character. There is a scene where he is just talking with someone else, basically giving the what makes me Spider-Man spiel to them. And it's something I feel like the MCU has been lacking with Spidey. He even references something that everyone's been wanting him to reference for 5 years that he referenced in this. It's just a shame that the best version of Spider-Man is in an alternate timeline and not the mainline MCU Spidey. But I guess since this alternate timeline is just kind of an alternate version of MCU Spidey, then in that regard, we can apply the same things to main MCU Spider-Man. There's a lot of characters in this one, a lot of cool characters, a lot of cool team-ups in there. So when it wasn't dark, it was pretty fun. And as for some of the writing, I think there was a lot of really cool lines. There were some lines that got me, almost got me. And some characters that get to be in the spotlight that just really haven't gotten a moment in the spotlight yet. We get that for some characters. Some really cool twists and turns in there, some cool character reveals. Just all in all, from start to finish, this is an episode that they handled perfectly, very maturely. They knew the story they were setting out to tell. They didn't hold back. This got dark. And the funny thing is that they said there were darker episodes that they couldn't do. But I'm like, darker? Like, this is pretty dark for an animated family-centered show. There were some moments in there I was like, holy crap. Although I will say there's a couple deaths that seem unnecessary, like they had thrown them in just to have a few more deaths. I can think of 2 characters in particular that probably didn't need to die and did die just for the sake of more characters dying. But overall, besides that, I don't really have any issues with this episode. I liked how they handled it. and it's definitely my favorite so far. So, that's it for non-spoilers. If you have not seen the episode, I really don't want to spoil this one for you. Go watch the episode, come back, watch this. Let's talk spoilers. Alright, first off, let's talk about Spider-Man. Because he was great in this episode. He stole the episode for me. He has the cloak, he's with the Avengers, but he still feels like Spider-Man. We get to see the basic attributes of the webhead. Like I said, when he was talking with Hope, he's saying he's lost so much. His mom, dad, Uncle Ben, Mr. Stark. They finally mention Uncle Ben. That's what everyone's been waiting 5 years for them to mention. He finally mentions Uncle Ben. It's just a cartoon that's an alternate timeline, but what are you gonna do? And he had one really cool line when he was talking to Hope, because I loved his relationship with Hope in this. I think that was a cool team up. Hope asks how he always smiles through it, how he's always upbeat, and he says, if we don't keep smiling when they can't, we might as well be gone too. And I thought that was a great line. It's cool to see Spidey in a leadership role and in a more mature role, because that's something we haven't gotten from him in the MCU, so it's cool to see him step up into that role in this. And then later that line's called back when Hope turns into Giant Wasp, and she carries them all through that zombie horde, and they're all climbing on her, and she throws them into Camp Lehigh, and she says, hey Peter, smile for me, and then they all swarm her. Man, that almost got me. That was so sweet. I absolutely love that bit. I love that callback. Just this episode was so well written. Also, there was one funny line I really liked. In a very serious episode, the jokes worked. Like, Kurt's Baba Yaga line, great, and then it paid off when Scarlet Witch showed up. And I loved when Spidey first swings in. He says, hi, I'm your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and Banner says, well, where the hell is the neighborhood? Anyway, the team in this, it was so cool to see some side characters get to be part of the main group. All of them got killed off by the end, but it was cool. It was Spider-Man, Wasp, Happy, Bucky, Okoye, Kurt, and Sharon Carter. That was our main team. Now, by the end of that, the only one who wasn't dead was Spider-Man, and then he got a couple others, because Panther was alive, just missing a leg, and Scott's head put in a little jar. He was alive, and Scott had the cloak at the end. And I like that they didn't find a cure. It kind of ties into that theme they were telling about finding hope. We're just left with the hope that they will find a cure. You know, Scott, T'Challa, and Peter, they're on the quad jet going to find a cure. They're going to Wakanda, which they get to, and Thanos is a zombie with all but the Mind Stone, and Spider-Man has the Mind Stone. I would love to see a part 2 to this. I kind of wish it kept going. I wish it wasn't a 30-minute episode. This episode could be a whole series on its own, because I want to know what happens in Wakanda. Does zombie Thanos snap? Do they kill zombie Thanos? What happens? Let's talk about death, because there was an unbelievable amount of death in this episode. Iron Man gets decapitated at the start. So I thought the Avengers, the 5 posters they gave us posters for Iron Man, Captain America, Falcon, Doctor Strange, and Hawkeye. I thought they were going to be the main antagonists. They really weren't. It was just all the zombies as a whole. But they get offed pretty quickly. Wong gets his head cut off almost immediately. And then Doctor Strange gets eaten by wasps when Wasp shows up. And then Iron Man gets his head blown off. In the train station, Okoye cuts Falcon in half like that. I can't remember how Hawkeye died, if he died on screen. And then Happy gets shot in the face by the Iron Man repulsor that he was wearing to defend himself. Then Cap gets sliced in half with his own shield. Sharon gets blown up from the inside. And then Bucky, Okoye, and Kurt all get obliterated by Wanda. Vision kills himself. And Wasp and Hulk, they don't die on screen, but we see Wasp become a zombie, and she's just a giant zombie. And I think it's safe to assume that Hulk probably became a zombie. And so, like I said, Spider-Man, Scott's head and T'Challa are the only survivors. And I want to talk about Vision real quick. We got bad guy Vision. It was very interesting and very cool. They get to Camp Lehigh, and Vision's like, oh yeah, he cured Scott Lang, and Bucky goes down there and he finds Wanda in a cell and T'Challa on a bed, and figures out that Vision wouldn't kill Wanda and he couldn't cure her, so he's just feeding anyone he can to Wanda, and T'Challa was next. And after Wanda gets out, Vision says to atone for his sins he has to pay, and he rips the stone out of his head, which he couldn't have waited until the Avengers were gone, because his energy signature is what was keeping the zombies out. So him ripping his stone out before they left brought all the zombies in, and then led to more death. And then I was talking about some deaths I feel like were in there just for the sake of having more deaths and didn't feel necessary. And that was Bucky's death, because Wanda was distracted with Vision's dead body. She wasn't paying attention to the Avengers, so Bucky could have escaped, but instead he told them to run and then just started shooting Wanda, and it did nothing except make her realize that there's more people she can go kill. So she just killed Bucky and then just went after everyone else. And if she hadn't done that, Hulk wouldn't have had to kind of sacrifice himself, although I will say that was a really cool scene when we got to see Hulk fighting Scarlet Witch. And yeah, just that is such a long list of deaths. Like, do not get attached. You cannot get attached to anyone in this episode besides Spider-Man. Because anyone else is either dead or comes in later on in the episode. You don't have enough time to get attached. Spider-Man is the only character who we see from the very start to the very finish that makes it. So that's really all I want to talk about. I didn't give a play-by-play of everything, just some of the things I wanted to mention. This was by far my favorite episode of this show. I am honestly not sure how they're gonna top it with 6, 7, 8, and 9. But we do have some cool stuff coming up, so I'm at least excited to see what else they have for us. So what were your thoughts on episode 5 of What If, called What If Zombies? Let me know your thoughts on it down in the comments below. Also leave a like on this video, subscribe, click on the bell icon to receive all notifications from the MCU HQ. This can be it. Have a great day, guys.